Vice Mayor Maureen Porras. What an honor it is to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm super excited, and I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to the city.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Maureen, the first question I wanted to ask you is, you came to the US when you were 7 years old.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, what do you remember from that moment? And how do you think that shaped you to be the woman you are today?
Yeah, and that's a really great question because so I was born in Nicaragua, and my mom actually came to the US before I did. So she came when I was 6 months old, and I stayed behind along with my two older sisters and in the care of my grandma and my father. And so we were in Nicaragua for about 7 years before we actually traveled to the US. And of course, in those 7 years, I had not met my mom. So wow. Yeah, because she left when I was 6 months. And so the first time meeting her was during my entry to the US when I was about 7 years old. And so for me, it was more about, hey, you're going to meet your mom. After years of getting videos, photos, and just exchanging, photos from us to her. It was finally a moment that I was going to meet her. And so that's, I think, the one thing that I remember the most, knowing that I was going to meet my mom. And of course, coming into a new country, the first thing that I can recall was McDonald's, McDonald's Happy Meal. And I think it was, for me, it was a much easier process of integrating because of my age. Again, I didn't feel like I was in a foreign country or anything because I really didn't have a great understanding of what it meant to be an immigrant at that age.
And you came straight to Miami.
Yes, we came straight to Miami. Yes. And, I remember going through immigration. They were very respectful. They were, I was 7. And so I think that they made it an easy time for us to get through. And, having that history where, my mom left us in Nicaragua to come here and really create that space and that path for us to be able to come to the US and really create that opportunity. I really think helped shape who I am and also helped me decide that I really wanted to do something that would help other families that were similarly situated, other immigrant families like my own. And so I knew at a very early age that I wanted to be an immigration lawyer and help other families with that same process.
Wow. Now being a vice mayor, you meet with a lot of nonprofit leaders, business owners, successful people overall, and government officials. What would you say are some common things that you see when it comes to like leadership and negotiation skills? Like, what are some common things that you've learned throughout these 2 years?
I think that the best leadership skills that I have seen I've actually been in the nonprofit sector 9 years. And so during that time, I've dealt with a lot of organizations, a lot of attorneys, a lot of people, a lot of agencies. And during that time, and including my last 2.5 years with the city council, I've learned that the best leadership is that where you bring people in as opposed to exclude people. Because working as a nonprofit lawyer for over 9 years, I've had to learn how to create coalitions because you can't do it alone.
For sure.
And working for a nonprofit and with nonprofits, you understand that. You understand that no nonprofit, no person, no group can do it alone. And you need to create those coalitions. You need to bring people in order for you to give the best service and the best assistance to the community. And so for me, that's what leadership is. It is not just bringing people in, but also giving everyone their proper recognition because you can't do it alone and no one here does it alone. And in fact, that's something that I brought to the city council because we are a council of 5. And collectively, in accordance with our charter, is how we make the rules for the city. It's not just one person. It's collectively the 5 of us. Of course, here, anything that gets passed needs a majority of the vote. But I think that if we work collaboratively, I think we can do the best for our city.
Talking about making rules for the city, I feel like a lot of business owners don't really like realize how much impact local government can have like in their businesses. What would you say, or what do you wish every single entrepreneur or business owner in Doral knew about like working with their city and not against their city?
That it's important to work with us and also to know what's happening at your local government. Because you're right, the decisions that we make at the local level here at the city council are the ones that impact the businesses, the residents, visitors, and they impact their everyday lives. In a sense, I think that they're the most important rules. And so, but we are the ones that receive the less attention from the media, from residents, and from people that are really want to be involved. I don't think that there's enough engagement at the city level. And again, we are making these laws that are impacting your everyday life. And so for me, part of what I've done and part of what I would like to continue to do is stress that importance of reaching out to your local elected officials, collaborating, being more involved, attending your council meetings. We have some really important issues that we deal with at the local level. And we don't really get enough participation at the city council meetings. And so for me, I think that's been part of my role as vice mayor and also as part of the city council to go out and engage with the community, which is something that I've been doing as a community lawyer. I just transferred it to this level, and I go out and I talk to residents, I talk to businesses. In fact, we are doing several business visits, not just to introduce ourselves, but also let businesses know what sort of resources and information the city can provide to them for free.
Interesting. So you and I, we met at an event at a mutual friend of ours. He hosted an event. And I see how hectic your schedule is, that you're going from event to event. I was even able to speak with your husband, and he mentioned to me that like you had gone to an event before that event. Like, it's crazy. And I really like admire your work ethic. And not only are you a vice mayor, you're an attorney, and you have to go to all these events and be involved in the community. What would you say to someone? Because I feel like right now, a lot of like taking life easy, just like balancing everything out, and I guess not really following your goals and doing everything you can, whatever it takes to accomplish your mission. I feel like that's really like glorified right now, like kind of like having a balanced life. What would you say to someone who's maybe just starting out in business or any venture? What would you say to them to keep them inspired to just keep going, whether like you've gone to 3 events or 4 events in a single day? What would you tell that person?
So I think that what's really carried me through has been discipline. Discipline is something that you acquire with practice, and it hasn't been easy, honestly. In fact, I was the first one for my family to graduate from college, the first one, of course, to graduate from law school, and of course, the first one to be an elected official. And not having that example really made things a lot more challenging, because I couldn't go to my parents or anyone that we knew about the college application process. No one knew. I had to sort of figure it out by myself and with, whatever resources the school had, because I really didn't know anyone. I didn't know any attorneys. And I think that was harder because I never thought I could make it this far, because I didn't have an example. But what got me here is discipline. Despite the challenges, despite the hard times, and despite the fact that you don't see or have anyone that can help you and guide you through that process, the thing that kept me going was discipline. And I knew that this was my goal. It was not going to be easy. In fact, during college, I was working full time and also going to school full time. So there were days where I was waking up at 6 a.m. to get to my job at 9. And then I was getting back home around 10 p.m. because I had to go to school after my 9 to 5. And I did that for about 2.5 years, but I knew it was temporary, but it had to be done because I also had to make a living. And so, again, I think it's something that, some people have to go through. I feel that I had to work twice as hard as, let's say, someone that perhaps had family members that were attorneys or, that could easily, let's say, give them a job right out of law school, or that had that guidance already within their family. They were, second, third generation attorneys. And I knew that I had to work twice as hard, and I was okay with it, and I was willing to do it. And so I guess my message is, whatever circumstance you are in, it doesn't matter. You can do it. It doesn't matter if you're going to have to accept that maybe you have to work twice or three times as hard, but you can make it. And that's what I really wanted to demonstrate, not just with, my community, but I also wanted to demonstrate that if you want to represent your community, you can also do it at the political level. It's something that can be done. And so I'm very satisfied where I am, because I feel that I have created a path for others that have similar stories, similar backgrounds as mine, to get to where I am. And that it's not an exclusive club or thing being in elected office, because it can feel like that sometimes. It really can. And so for me, I think anyone can do anything they want with discipline and commitment. And it may not be easy, but it's doable.
What do you think made you, number one, go to law school, and number two, become a politician?
Well, I've always been a stickler for following the rules for some reason, and so,
which is a good thing.
Yes, and I'm able to apply my legal knowledge at the city council level. In fact, I'm the only lawyer in the city council at this time, and I'm the one that's pointing out, hey, we can't do this. Hey, this is what the law requires us to do. And so for me, reviewing policy is a lot easier than some of my colleagues, because I'm familiar with the legal process. I'm familiar with case law, statutes, and I have a more unique understanding of how policy works because of that reason. And so I've always been the type that has also looked for fairness and justice. And I think that we need people that can stand up for other people, because there are a lot of individuals that do not have a voice, and we need to show up for them.
It seems like a lot of people nowadays, they really get told to just follow their passion, but somehow it seems as if you've been following your purpose. What would you tell to someone who maybe doesn't know what to do with their lives? Maybe you're just getting started, graduating college, because it seems like you followed your purpose. What would you say to that person who doesn't really know where to start?
I think trying out different things is helpful, because see, even though I knew that I wanted to get into immigration law, in law school, I tried different areas of law, and I ended up saying I didn't like them. And so for me, I always encourage people to do internships, volunteer in different areas, maybe some that may be of interest. And that way you can sort of eliminate some of the areas that may not be a good fit. And so that's what I encourage people to do. Go out there, do internships, do volunteer work, start meeting people. I mean, nowadays, I'm very impressed by this younger generation that just leads by example. I mean, I have students from high school reaching out to me directly, no parents involved, just reaching out, telling me they need to do this. I didn't do that at that age. And so I'm very impressed, and I'm starting to see that too. And I think that's the right path. Go out and explore, get involved. And I think that people will be impressed by someone reaching out to them and being curious about their line of work, requesting to volunteer or intern. I think that it's a great way to experience different areas and fields of studies and determine which one you like.
Going back to the question I asked you, that you meet with a lot of government officials, business owners. In Doral, from all the people that you've met, all the business owners, what would you say, aside from discipline and work ethic, what would you say separates a successful business owner from a business owner that's just barely getting by?
I think adaptability and creativity. I think that I've met a lot of business owners that survived through the pandemic because of their creativity and their innovation. And they realized that there was a problem. There was an issue. They didn't give up. They actually thought of different ways on how to push through it, and they survived. And I think that that's really the greatest example that we can have, businesses that were able to survive the pandemic. And I'm not saying that those that did anything wrong, that's at all. But I think that some that realized this was going to be a challenging time and that maybe found other resources and other ways to survive were really the ones that are still here and standing. And I do applaud them for doing that.
I think leadership, I mean, especially being a vice mayor, like you're always on camera, out in the community. But sometimes, like, I'm assuming sometimes you have like difficult moments too, right? Like you're human. And so can you share with us a moment, maybe something recent that happened that maybe you felt uncertain or you were doubting yourself, and how you overcame that?
Yeah, there's a lot of moments like that. And when you're making decisions that, again, are going to impact people's lives sometimes, people's everyday lives too, it's challenging, especially when you are getting feedback from, let's say, two different groups that want you to vote one way, and then the other ones want you to vote the other way. It's been really difficult managing that. But at the end of the day, one, I like to hear from everyone. That's the first thing. I do like feedback because I don't know it all. And in order for us to truly govern based on what the community needs, it's to hear what the community needs, not what I think the community needs. That's one. Two, I take that feedback, I process it, and then I think about what's going to be best for the community as a whole. And then the third thing is I'm very honest about it. You may not like to hear how I'm going to vote or what I'm going to do, but I think it's important for people to know, one, how you're going to vote, and two, why you're doing that. And at the end of the day, I know though everyone has heard you can't please everyone, but you really can't please everyone. You have to really take your role and responsibility serious and think about the greater good for the community. And I do that every day. And in fact, we're going to have a council meeting very soon where we're going to have to decide some very controversial issues, including whether the city is going to enter into a contract with ICE, which is something that has been passed in other municipalities as well as the county. And again, you're going to have some groups that say we should be doing this to protect the community, and other groups that, say that it's really something that's discriminatory. And so those are the hard decisions that we have to make. And again, at the end of the day, I take everything feedback, and now in that area, like my knowledge of immigration law, and I will make a decision based on what I think the community needs.
And that's a difficult conversation to have too, especially being an immigrant, right?
That's a very difficult conversation.
A lot of business owners watch this podcast, and I feel like what you said right now of listening to feedback and like actually knowing what the community wants also applies to their businesses, because a lot of business owners, they start like with a product in mind instead of thinking like, what does my dream customer really want? And then like kind of like going backwards from there. So that's very important. A lot of people are moving to Florida, right? And especially the Doral area. What would you say to someone who wants to grow with this crazy growth that's happening right now and like not stay behind? Like, what do you recommend to that person?
I would definitely say connect with your government. We here at the city have a lot of resources. And in fact, that's part of what we bring to our visits. Every time we visit a business, we love to hear about their startup. We love to hear about their history. And we also like to share knowledge and information on the type of resources that the city has for them. We do have an economic development department that helps small businesses with several things, including grand openings, reopenings. They do even social media videos so that we can promote them. And they also help connect them to resources like grants, partners. And we have this great program, but not a lot of businesses know about it.
I didn't know it existed.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing as well. We're communicating that to the businesses because we want them to thrive.
For sure.
If they thrive, we thrive. And we have such a successful city that we would love to continue seeing it grow and succeed and be prosperous. And that's the reason why I do it, because not a lot of businesses understand and know that there's help and support from the city.
You worked in a lot of budget negotiations. What would you say is one thing that can give a person leverage when it comes to like negotiating anything?
I think that having something that you can actually negotiate in terms of budgeting that you can offer. I think that's something important. I consider myself very fiscally conservative. And so for me, I think that you need to prove that spending, that line item needs to be there. So if you have something that you can offer that, let's say, the city cannot live without, or that is enhancing the city services, then you're very likely going to have a good advantage in including that in the budget. So because I'm a stickler for that. I think other colleagues are not as conservative fiscally as me, but that's also part of what has helped me get to this point, being fiscally conservative. And again, if you have something that you can offer that, again, is enhancing or is a complete necessity for the city and the community, you're going to have a good advantage in negotiating it.
Something that they need.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting. What do you think made you be fiscally conservative?
I think that not coming from a very wealthy family taught me how to save, how to conserve money, and how it's necessary a lot of the times. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you don't have enough money because you're spending it in something that you don't necessarily need to. And especially when it comes to taxpayer money. We have a big responsibility here in the city where taxpayers, we have to handle taxpayers' monies responsibly. And that's the first thing I think about. They're not just our residence taxes, they're my taxes too. And so I want to make sure that they're being spent correctly and not frivolously. And that's what I apply every time we get into the budget season.
And you also mentioned that throughout college you were working and like managing all these different things. Do you think that was to some degree because you wanted to like move your family like forward and take them like to another level and be able to care for them? Like what was it that kept you going back then? Was it like the money? Was it the purpose? Like what was it?
I truly believe in generational growth, meaning my parents came to the U.S. My mom first came to the U.S. with very little money, just like a lot of immigrants' parents also come. Some, they'll tell you they came with no money. They came with $10. They came with very, very little money in their pockets, and then they built it, right? And so for me, I felt that as the offspring of someone that did that, I should naturally want to grow that generational wealth, and not just financially, but through education, status, and also just moving up. And so for me, I think that taking an opportunity that my parents gave us, that they sacrificed things for, to give to us, we have to take advantage of it. And I think that every generation should continue to grow, because now every generation is going to have a better opportunity than the last. And that's, I think, part of what fueled me, as well as I have been in the circumstances where I've had no money, when I was a student, and I've had to live paycheck to paycheck. And in fact, when I moved to law school, to Jacksonville for law school, I packed all of my belongings, everything that I owned in my life, in a small Yaris. And I think I had to wait for my first stipend to come in before I could buy food. And so I understand the financial struggle and the importance of being fiscally conservative as well, because I've been there. And I knew that I obviously wanted my family and myself to improve, and also, again, set the example for our future generations within our families and other families as well.
How do you mentioned that for the future generations, you don't want to just create like generational wealth, like financially, but you also want to create it through like education and all these different things. How do you plan on doing that?
So I have actually dedicated myself to doing that because I knew how important it was when I was going through it and I didn't have it. And so throughout my years as an attorney, I have become a mentor to other attorneys. A lot has been with women because I do think that women, we need a little more help sometimes. And so I really have focused a lot on becoming a mentor for other female attorneys. Honestly, going through my career path, I never had a female mentor, which was really sad. It was gentlemen and men that helped me. My supervisors were all male, and they all helped me. And so for me, I thought it was important to have females take on that role as well. And so I've done that through my career as a lawyer, where I have helped mentor, train other female attorneys to take on my roles. Because as I've ascended throughout my career, I've made sure that I've left someone in my space that is competent and prepared. And I think that's our duty. And now as part of the city council, that's what we're doing in schools. We're mentoring. We are helping other young students and young women, men to not just help them to move forward with achieving their purpose, but also letting them know that we are here, set up a partnership and mentorship program where we go into the schools and do that. Like, for example, we're actually going to one of the elementary schools with a panel with judges, magistrates, and attorneys to educate the students on what it is to be an attorney, and really just be there for them and tell them that they have mentors here. So that was part of what I wanted to do because, again, I didn't have it.
Wow, that's adding another thing to your schedule. And I'm curious because both you and your husband are public servants.
Yeah.
How would you say you stay grounded as a couple? Is it something that you spoke about? Is there something like how do you stay grounded as a couple?
I'm very lucky that my husband and I are so compatible because we actually met in law school over 13 years ago, and we both chose to be in public service. He's currently a magistrate in Broward County. And we knew that we wanted to live a life where we had purpose, where we helped other people and contributed. I think that's the most important thing, contributing to making society better. Because if we're not doing that, then I don't see why I would want to be in this, to be honest.
What would you say is your end goal with Doral, or like as a politician, what would you say is your end goal?
I would love to see a more engaged community. And I would love to see more participation in the sense of people running for office, because I don't think there's enough good people running. I think politics has become a very dangerous sport. And I don't think enough good people enter this field because of that reason. And there's so much talent. There's so many people that can do so much good that any person that even hints at wanting to run, I tell them to do it because they should. And also they should know that what failure is, because when I ran the first time, I didn't win. And that didn't stop me. It kept me going. And again, I think it's a great experience to learn how to lose, to learn how to run for office and be in public office.
Maureen, my last question for you is, what does success mean to you?
I think success means seeing the people around you also succeeding and you contributing to that success, because that makes our community a lot better and a lot stronger. And I don't want to be the only successful person in this world. So I try to help others, friends, And I think that when one of us wins, we all win. And if we keep that mentality where it's not a competition, then that there is opportunities for everyone, I think we can make this community a better place.
That's powerful. Vice Mayor, thank you very much for being on the show. It's truly an honor. And I know your time is very valuable. Your schedule is very packed. So I'm happy we were able to set this up. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. I was honored and I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for doing this and all the great work that you're doing and educating and providing this information to the community as well.
Thank you so much, Maureen. It's a pleasure.
Likewise.